I'm Veronica Dudo. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly. Portland protest. Violence erupts outside an ICE office, but some of the biggest drama is happening inside a courtroom. We'll explain. Push for peace. As explosions and plumes of smoke rise over the Gaza Strip, a new round of negotiations on President Trump's peace plan takes place in Egypt. We have the latest. Battling a blizzard, the race is on to save hundreds of hikers stranded on Mount Everest. And saying goodnight, Pope Leo XIV thanks a global Catholic fraternal service order with a special connection to EWTN. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on the Feast of St. Bruno. Our top story tonight, the Trump administration pushes back after a federal judge temporarily blocks the administration from deploying any National Guard units to Portland, Oregon. In addition, President Trump has also moved to deploy National Guard troops to Chicago, but now Illinois and Chicago are suing to stop that move. And tonight, the fallout and finger pointing is ramping up. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Veronica, good evening to you. Well, lots of moving parts in communities and courtrooms across the country right now as the White House cracks down on illegal immigration and says it has to protect federal facilities from harm. Local officials arguing that military intervention is not necessary and saying, get out.
In Portland over the weekend, protesters clashed with federal agents outside Portland's ICE detention facility. A U.S. district judge there granting a temporary restraining order sought by Oregon and California to block the deployment of Guard troops from those states to Portland. Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, posts on X, an Oregon judge ruled that the Commander-in-Chief cannot station federal troops in her state to defend the lives of federal officers. And in the White House press briefing room today, Caroline Levitt tells reporters,
with all due respect to that judge, I think her opinion is untethered in reality and in the law. The president is using his authority as Commander-in-Chief, U.S. Code 12406, which clearly states that the president has the right to call up the National Guard in cases where he deems it's appropriate.
And just yesterday, President Donald Trump said Portland, Oregon
is burning to the ground. You have agitators, insurrectionists. All you have to do is look at the television, turn on your television, read your newspapers. It's burning to the ground.
But Oregon's Attorney General demands presidential power be checked.
Mobilizing the United States military in our cities is not normal. It should not be normal, and we will fight to make sure that it is never normal. As the president, you must have an actual facts based on reality, not social media or just your gut feeling if you want to mobilize the military here in the United States.
In Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker said some 300 of the state's Guard troops were to be federalized and deployed to the nation's third largest city, along with 400 others from Texas. Pritzker said the potential deployment amounted to Trump's invasion. And one member of the Illinois State Senate described her fears.
We've already seen what is coming through the actions of ICE in my district and communities across the state of Illinois. What we're seeing is an authoritarian playbook where the Trump administration has continued moving full steam ahead with an unconstitutional invasion, military control of our cities.
The Chicago lawsuit filed today accuses President Trump, DHS, ICE, and Border Patrol of unleashing a campaign of violence and intimidation against peaceful protesters during weeks of demonstrations outside an ICE detention facility in Broadview, Illinois.
Now, the Trump administration maintains the National Guard is being sent to defend ICE officers who it says are under siege. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Turning now to the Middle East, Israeli and Hamas officials are holding indirect talks over finalizing President Trump's U.S.-drafted peace plan to end the war in Gaza. The discussions are focused on the first stage of a ceasefire, which includes a partial withdrawal of Israeli forces and the release of hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. This comes as Israel continues its deadly strikes on the Gaza Strip despite President Trump's order to stop. So could the end of the war in Gaza be near? Let's bring in Alberto Fernandez, an EWTN contributor. Welcome to the show. Alberto, do you think there will finally be a peace deal for Gaza?
Well, I think we're certainly closer than we've ever been over the past 2 years. You know, we've had fits and starts and partial stops, and this is the closest we've come to a comprehensive end. This is the closest we've come to yes by all parties. We're not quite there yet, but certainly the administration has brought it as close to the finish line as we've seen in 2 years.
But we've also seen the Trump administration, really talk about wanting to add that pressure. So do you think that the push for peace comes after Hamas even said it would release the remaining 48 hostages, 20 still believed to be alive? Could that come to fruition?
Well, there's a basic problem with the peace plan, which is inherent in many plans, which is it has immediate, midterm, and long-term goals. I think there's a good chance that given the intense pressure that the administration is bringing to bear on both sides, that the immediate results of the plan could very well be accomplished within the next, say, days or maybe week at the most. I think the devil in the detail is in the medium and long-term parts of the plan, which are very complex, which involve lots of moving parts, foreign countries, a lot of money, troops on the ground. So there's a lot of space for mischief, especially from Hamas, which seeks to kind of maneuver to keep being able to play its role in Gaza in the future. So I'm short-term optimistic, but long-term maybe a little more cautious.
So right now, members of Mr. Netanyahu's far-right coalition have long objected to the deal. They've even threatened to dissolve his government if he agrees to one. How does this impact a possible ceasefire?
Well, it doesn't impact it a lot in this sense. The overwhelming majority of the people of Israel want the war to end in the 70 percentile. So the popular opinion, public opinion is completely on the side in Israel of the war coming to an end. At the same time, the main political opposition in Israel has said that they will back the deal and they will make sure that the Netanyahu government doesn't fall. So that kind of eliminates some of the pressure from coming from Prime Minister Netanyahu's far-right partners to a certain extent. And of course, Netanyahu himself has said he wants the hostages released and he wants this done. So I think that, yes, there are people who would like to torpedo it, probably on both sides. There are certainly people on the Palestinian side who would like to torpedo it. But I think that the pressure is more towards getting a deal done than not.
Alberto Fernandez, thank you so much for your insights on this really important situation.
Thank you.
Tomorrow marks the 2-year anniversary of Hamas launching what would become the deadliest terrorist attack in Israelis' history. Ahead of it, the Vatican has denounced the, quote, inhuman massacre of innocent people in Israel. The Holy See also sought to strike a balance between condemning the original attacks and Israel's response. The Vatican's Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, spoke to Vatican media, saying those who are attacked have a right to defend themselves, but even legitimate defense must respect the principle of proportionality. The perverse chain of hatred can only generate a spiral that leads nowhere good. The Cardinal adds that Israel's razing of Gaza is itself a disproportionate massacre and urges the countries to stop supplying Israel with weapons to wage the war. He repeated calls for the return of hostages taken by Hamas and says the Holy See welcomes and supports President Trump's peace plan. It's day 6 of the government shutdown, and there's no deal in sight to end the crisis. The Senate is scheduled to vote this evening for the 5th time on advancing the House-passed clean continuing resolution to fund the government through November 21st. So the question remains, will Democrats stay united? Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports. Eric?
Well, good evening, Veronica. Yes, after a weekend home and getting an earful from constituents, it will be interesting to see how many Democrats actually jump ship and join Republicans in ending this government shutdown. So far, 2 Democrats have voted with Republicans along with 1 independent. Now, Speaker Mike Johnson was asked today, why are Republicans not willing to negotiate to open the government?
There's nothing for us to negotiate. the House has done its job.
The Speaker says Democrats have supported a clean CR 13 previous times when Democrats were in charge.
I didn't add a single Republican policy or priority or preference to the CR. It is 100% totally clean. It is an exact status quo replica of what we're doing right now, which again is Biden-era policies and spending levels, to our great chagrin.
Republicans say the Medicaid work requirements and other cuts are meant to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse. Democrats say that they want all the cuts restored to the tune of $1.5 trillion and add fighting for Obamacare subsidies is worth the growing pain of a shutdown.
They thought they could bludgeon us and threaten us and scare us. It ain't working because my caucus and Democrats are adamant that we must protect the health care of the American people.
But some Democrats could start feeling the pressure as the first paychecks that some federal workers will miss is scheduled for this Friday. Plus, many of them are anxiously awaiting to see whether President Trump and his budget office will follow through on threats of mass layoffs or rescind more federal funding from blue states.
House Republicans are on vacation all across the country and the world, and Senate Republicans continue to vote on the same partisan Republican spending bill that's dead on arrival.
Leader Jeffries wrote a letter to the Speaker challenging him to a debate on the House floor televised during prime time. The Speaker says he won't give Jeffries the satisfaction.
When the poll says that about 13% of the people approve of your messaging, then you make desperate pleas for attention, and that's what Hakeem Jeffries has done.
Some economists say that the real issue, when Democrats were in charge of Congress and expanded the affordable health care and increased Obamacare subsidies, Congress never determined how the government would pay for these programs. Now, with the national debt at $38 trillion, Republicans say real cuts have to be made. But bottom line, it could be political suicide when you start taking away programs from the public that they're used to live on. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
A new Supreme Court term begins today following a summer-long recess, but it was hardly a vacation as justices handled one emergency request after another. The court is scheduled to review 39 argued cases, which include a pair of cases challenging transgender student-athlete bans, a death penalty case, and how multiple IQ scores factor into whether a person is eligible for the death penalty, and arguments involving a pregnancy center in New Jersey challenging a state investigation alleging it misled people into thinking its services included referrals for abortion. Tomorrow, the court will hear bans on therapy aimed at changing sexual orientation. Currently, almost half of U.S. states have passed bans limiting this type of therapy. Walter Olson is a senior fellow at the Cato Institute at the Robert A. Levy Center for Constitutional Studies. He joins us now. Walter, with the court more conservative, do you think the gender identity bans will be upheld?
I think there's a good chance that the transgender advocates are going to lose on the two cases before us, and starting with the conversion therapy one, which is going to be argued tomorrow at the court. Colorado enacted one of these laws, and it is being sued by a therapist who points out that this is restricting her speech. It's also restricting her client's speech. She would like to explore areas in conversation. She's a talk therapist, not a drug-giving therapist. And she says this is limiting her speech in a way that the First Amendment clearly does not prohibit. Now, Colorado takes the position this is conduct, not speech. And you're opening the door here. If you say that we can't regulate what doctors say, then perhaps we would have to allow them to engage in quackery and, false advice to their patients. The court has been teeing up this issue for a while, and I think the votes are there probably to say, no, this is not just conduct. There are issues here that the First Amendment does cover, and there's also an asymmetry here, because as the therapist points out, if she were urging her patients to be more transgender, as it were, the law would give her no problem at all. But if she instead diagnoses a particular patient, saying, no, that's the wrong direction for this patient, it's not the way they really should be winding up based on their own values, then the law steps in and silences her. So I think she's likely to win on one or both of those issues. Now, in the other case, it's athletes in high school and college. And the cases there from Idaho and West Virginia say that in those cases, the appeals courts have ruled illegal state laws in Idaho and West Virginia saying you've got to play on the team of your original sex of birth. In Idaho, the Ninth Circuit has ruled that the federal constitution prohibits that under equal protection. In West Virginia, the Fourth Circuit ruled that it violates federal education law, federal discrimination law. Again, I think that the schools and the states are going to win on that and find those laws upheld, particularly Idaho, because there's no way this court is going to find a constitutional right. Reading federal discrimination law is always a little more a matter of what does the exact text say. Even so, I'd be surprised if the state lost.
Thanks for reviewing some of the details for those cases. Now, what does the number and type of cases that the court has taken say about this term to you?
They've taken fewer cases every year than the year before, typically, and that's also true this year. I think it's only in the 30s. But you mentioned when we started the emergency docket, and that's where the balance is changing. They take more and more cases that come up over the course of the year that may not be final, where they are deciding on a procedural or a temporary basis. And we already know there are going to be a bunch of those. We also think it's very, very likely that some of the cases that haven't yet matured into certiorari petitions for the court are going to do so. For example, those National Guard cases involving President Trump, the birthright citizenship cases, those aren't before the court yet. And yet, by the time next year rolls around, very likely, I think, that cases like that will have turned into cases that the court has agreed to hear.
Of course, we'll continue to follow all of this. Walter Olson, Senior Fellow at the Cato Institute, thank you.
Thank you.
We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly. Record resignation. The Prime Minister of a major European country resigns with a record time in office, and historic election. After decades of a dictatorship, one country takes a step towards democracy. Long-range Ukrainian drones and missiles hit a major Russian ammunition plant, a key oil terminal, and an important weapons depot behind the front line. It comes as Kiev is cranking up pressure on Moscow's military logistics.
The main thing to understand is that in recent days, Ukraine has used exclusively Ukrainian-made weapons, not only drones.
President Zelensky says his country hopes to begin exporting surplus weapons production by the end of the year. This would increase the revenue needed to buy sophisticated systems it can't make itself. He says Ukraine is currently producing more than 40% of the weapons used on the front lines. It is the shortest-lived government in modern French history. It follows the resignation of the country's latest prime minister less than 24 hours after forming a cabinet. He has held his position for less than a month. This is intensifying the political crisis for French President Emmanuel Macron. Right now, the parliament is divided, with no party holding a majority. Now to China, where hundreds of hikers have been rescued after a snowstorm hits Mount Everest, making the already challenging climb much more dangerous. Take a look at this video. Horses and hikers are stranded while snow continues to fall. Villagers and tour guides have joined in the rescue effort, clearing paths or offering warm meals to those who have been rescued. At least one hiker has died and hundreds still remain trapped. Syria is holding its first parliamentary elections since the ouster of President Assad last year, and the first round of results are in. Only 2 Christians were among those elected, and a mere 4% were women of the projected 20%. The election marks a historic first since the fall of Assad, now under the leadership of interim President Shura. 2/3 are elected by regional electoral colleges, while Shura will elect the last third of parliament. Up next on EWTN News Nightly, the Pope and his pen. The Pope signs his first apostolic exhortation when it releases and what it addresses. Plus, Pope Leo meets with a Catholic Fraternal Service Order who share a special connection with EWTN. Pope Leo attended the swearing-in of 27 new Swiss guards at the Vatican over the weekend. It's the first time a pope has been present at the ceremony since Pope St. Paul VI in 1968. The recruits pledged their service during the traditional ceremony that honors the 147 guards who died defending Pope Clement during the Clement VII during the 1527 sack of Rome. Before their families and members of the Roman Curia, the men were sworn in and vowed to protect the Pope even with their lives. Pope Leo signs his first apostolic exhortation, Dilexi Te, meaning I have loved you. On Saturday morning, the Holy Father signed his first apostolic exhortation in the private library of the Apostolic Palace. The Vatican has not yet revealed the content of the document, but it is reportedly expected to focus on poverty and will be officially presented on Thursday at a press conference at the Vatican. At the first major Jubilee event of the month dedicated to the missions and the migrants, Pope Leo urged believers to rekindle awareness of our missionary vocation and to bring the joy and consolation of the gospel to everyone, especially to migrants facing hardships. EWTN Vatican journalist Valentina Di Donato has more.
Siamo qui perché presso la tomba dell'Apostolo Pietro.
We are here because at the tomb of the Apostle Peter, each one of us should be able to say with joy, the entire church is missionary, and it is urgent, as Pope Francis affirmed, that we go forth and preach the gospel to all places, on all occasions, without hesitation, reluctance, or fear.
At the Jubilee of the Missions and Migrants, Pope Leo XIV reminds all of the faithful about what it means to reach out in friendship to migrants.
Fratelli e sorelle.
Brothers and sisters, those boats which hope to catch the sight of a safe port, and those eyes filled with anguish and hope seeking to reach the shore, cannot and must not find the coldness of indifference or the stigma of discrimination. Mission is not so much about departing, but instead remaining, in order to proclaim Christ through hospitality and welcome, compassion and solidarity.
La compassione e la solidarietà.
Pope Leo XIV wrote for the World Day of Migrants that there is an opportunity to reflect on the connection between hope, migration, and mission. In a world darkened by war and injustice, even when all seems lost, migrants and refugees stand as messengers of hope. Their courage and tenacity bear heroic testimony to a faith that sees beyond what our eyes can see and gives them the strength to defy death on various contemporary migration routes. EWTN recently attended the Refugees and Migrants in Our Common Home event and spoke with leaders within the church helping unite gospel and action.
There are things that distract us in our world, whether it's power, money, fame, status. They can distract us and we forget, hey, we're all equal. We're all brothers and sisters.
And Sister Norma Pimentel, Executive Director of Catholic Charities of the Rio Grande Valley, spoke to us about the reality she witnesses on the Mexico-United States border.
When I speak about the reality I live on the border, I'm sharing the experiences I have when I see a little child crying who comes up to me and says, "Help me," with a face covered in tears. And when I share that with others, they somehow become present. They feel that pain, that child's cry, or that mother who is scared and fearful, wondering how to protect her children. I think it's very important that we all experience this, because when we do, it changes our hearts and opens them to the desire to help.
In Rome, Valentina Di Donato for EWTN News Nightly.
In his busy schedule, Pope Leo also held a special audience with the Knights of Columbus, thanking them for their charitable work and defense of life. He noted their charitable work in restoring the Vatican's baldacchino, as well as the aid they provide to those suffering from the effects of war and natural disasters. EWTN is grateful to be among the many programs they support. We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Veronica Dudo. Good night and God bless.